pre-talk groups.
Are we ready?
I'm Dee.
I'm Cadence.
My name is Calvin.
And our topic was MMIW, and the topic question was, how is awareness being raised about MMIW? The definitions and keywords in our question is awareness, the state or condition of being aware, having knowledge, consciousness. How, in what way or manner, by what means. Absent, not found or lost. Murdered, to commit murder. Indigenous, relating to or being a people who are the original earliest known inhabitants of a region or are their descendants. Women, the plural of woman, an adult female person. And raised, the amount of such an increase. And this is my article. In Eric Lindquist's article about MMIW titled Red Dress Display Recognizes Murdered Missing Indigenous Women, the Student Council at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, held set up a display of red dresses to help spread awareness about MMIW, missing and murdered Indigenous women. The dresses are used as a visual reminder of how many women have gone missing or murdered. A big reason why cases don't get solved is because of the lack of attention and lack of reporting on the cases. Maggie Jensen, an Associate Student Services Coordinator in UW Eau Claire's Office of Multicultural Affairs, is quoted as saying, "It is important to raise awareness about murdered and missing Indigenous women because these cases often fall through the cracks, go unheard, and often are ignored by media outlets." End quote. She also says raising awareness is important because the missing women, quote, deserve to be remembered, found, and their families need closure, end quote. Senator Jeff Smith was appointed to be on the Attorney General's Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Task Force. In 2021, Jeff Smith helped propose May 5th as Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Awareness Day in Wisconsin. So, according to a report by the Urban Indian Health Institute, only a fraction of the American Indian and Alaskan Native women that go missing is actually reported.
Okay, so mine's on the Navajo Pride Students Raise Awareness on the MMIW. Okay, a visual journalist named Sam Rigoff wrote about a high school spreading awareness of the MMIW, missing and murdered Indigenous women. At Navajo Preparatory School, Nest Gym was packed for a girls' basketball game with a halftime presentation coming their way. 4 girls from the PrepNat Youth Council Culture Committee went to the court at halftime with their faces covered with paint-red handprints on their face and gave a speech on both English and Navajo about the MMIW cases. After when the girls were done with their presentations, they wanted a moment of silence with people fists in the air. Please remember to look out for one another. Our women are important. We are important. Indigenous lives matter, said one of the girls. The athletic director and the girls' basketball head coach wanted to raise awareness of the issue. So the girls' basketball team made red shirts with the right handprints across the front of the words, "Strong, resilient, Indigenous," written on the back. The girls' basketball team wanted to show their support for this matter and wanted to continue raising awareness for the MMIW. Everyone wore red shirts for support because everyone took the 4 girls' presentations to heart and wanted to raise and spread awareness too.
Good.
Well, my report is basically, my article was basically a news report from the news team, News RX, and they're located in Logan, Utah. So it's the university, Utah State University did their research for MMIWG. The acronym for that is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. So they did some interviews with an advocacy team. Fighting for Our Sisters was one of the community advocacy teams that were there in Utah. Okay, so, they're trying, the advocacy team is trying to decolonize the usage by the social media, because it kind of goes on and explains that the mainstream media and the US government fails to raise awareness about missing and murdered Indigenous women. So the advocacy team in Logan, Utah, would quote, to raise awareness, Native communities have come together to advocate and honor missing, murdered Indigenous daughters, sisters, and mothers. News editors obtained a quote from the research from the Utah State University to provide an overview of the history of MMIWG, the lack of response by the U.S. government, and the decolonial action and advocacy by Native communities. However, we also go far beyond the typical academic article, and that we present both the factual information behind MMIWG and the emotional weight that each of the author and those we know carry. We have incorporated stories, pictures, art, and names of MMIWG to illustrate the ongoing reality of the attempted genocide of Native American women and girls. News editors conclude in their research, we pray that the article aids in the honoring of our lost sisters and their families while bringing awareness of this tragedy to the eyes of those who can join us in fighting the silence. That was my article, and then I'll go ahead and just go to a solution that I came up with, and I'll just read that verbatim. I think the Board of Supervisors for each city or town and tribal council for each tribal reservation could implement a subdivision in law enforcement specializing in reports specific to MMIW cases. Perhaps internal affairs could investigate each subdivision to maintain accountability within the subdivisions of law enforcement. The community members themselves could create a task force coordinating with law enforcement and establish a set of guidelines for each community to follow as an attempt to alleviate the cause of MMIW. And this is just something that's kind of going to come from the top of my head. I think one important thing that we should all be aware of too is just like knowing our resources. One of the resources I'm going to mention is just the Sexual Offenders Registry. Go online. You can search by zip code and find out what sex offenders are near you in your area. Being aware of those, I think just kind of having a buddy system, maybe a group text thing, just to keep an eye on your friends and your family. If they're having to go missing for over 24 hours, but of course make that report to law enforcement. But yeah, that's all I got right there.
Good. All right, so criteria. Interesting that you all are talking about campuses. University of Utah study, University of W at Eau Claire, that there's momentum in these particular locations, which means, doesn't always mean young people, 18-year-olds, because I teach people from 18 to 65, sometimes 70. So you can say Eau Claire, but it could be a huge age bracket. But the fact that it's in an educational institution facility system where there's studies being done, they're getting voices recorded, just like we are. And it's like, that is a positive in the 21st century, because the post office boxes are still not working for voters. You know what I mean? But technology through reporting and studying, very good. Your solutions were divine. I think task force sometimes have a name, and then are they tasking and actually doing? And then subdivision, it should just be a division.
Yeah.
Because it's so important. And when you put subdivision, it's under internal affairs, but it's like it really needs its own division.
I think because back at home, we don't have a drug czar, and that's what I've seen here with MHA. They have their own drug-specific department with law enforcement. We don't have that back at home, and I wish we had something like that. But yeah, that's kind of where my mind was at with that.
Right. Good. And so with criteria, the goods, the positives, and I know I brought out the school systems and the positives there. Solutions has been taken care of. Are there any questions or answers from the audience?
I have a question. Do you know if the the sex offender list is the same on reservation, does the same person govern that, or do we like, do it, you know how everything gets blurred between?
It's like a central registry, so it's all over, it's nationwide, so it
So
doesn't,
it's like-
it's not specific with state or federal,
So the
it's
tribe doesn't
nationwide,
just
so it's gonna have the
their own-
reservation people. It's a law requirement that if you're a sex offender, you have to issue that through the central registry, so it's all over, it's public information, we all have access to that.
Good question, because you'll see addresses if you go to Stutsman County to look up the ones in Jamestown, or Fort Tutton, and you go to, you look statewide and you can see addresses, you know, so, yeah, good, very good, thank you.